Hello and welcome to this Toonami Faithful Podcast exclusive. I am your host, Sketch, and with me I have my co host, Kuro.
Hello.
And we are delighted to have back on the podcast after a good long while the now Senior VP of Action and Anime at Warner Brothers Discovery, and you know him as the co creator of Toonami, Jason DeMarco.
Hey everybody.
It has been a while, sir.
It has, yeah.
And you've really gone up there.
I've had a busy couple years, yeah.
That is for sure. And you kind of started this co-production journey, obviously back with IGPX, but really more so since the Fooly Cooly sequels, and those were announced in like 2016. So you're probably working on them even before then. So about 10 years you've been doing
Yeah,
co-producing anime.
it has been a while, that long now, which is kind of crazy to say.
Would you say your approach has changed over the years, or has it remained largely the same?
I mean, I would say the approach is a little bit changed. I mean, Fooly Cooly was more because the opportunity presented itself. It wasn't part of like a plan, but then because Fooly Cooly did well, I was asked to come up with a plan. So a little bit of it was learning as I went and making mistakes or not making mistakes, trying different things. But I think where we're at now, at least looking at how things have performed the last couple of years, overall pretty happy. And now I've learned a couple things that I don't want to do, and I've learned some things I want to keep trying to do. So yeah, it's been evolving, and I
Do you
would say
want to elaborate a little bit on that?
uh just just I think it's very hard for someone working in the American system with our the money we have at Adult Swim and talking about the earlier Adult Swim titles to try to license a manga like a Shonen Jump manga or something like that. Very hard to do. So we were looking at developing IPs of things like Shenmue, or Blade Runner was a thing that we could make happen because we had a way in. And then I was trying to mix it up with originals. Well, now in this day and age, as you guys know, it's even more rare in anime and Western media to have any kind of original story that isn't based off of something. So I now am doing probably less original stories and more IP based stuff because that's what people are buying, and that's just the reality of the marketplace. So that's probably the biggest thing I've learned is there's spaces that as an American producer, I'm not going to be able to play in very often, and that's okay. That's not, I think, the function of the type of things I should be making anyway. Obviously, there's plenty of amazing Japanese studios and distributors who know exactly what Shonen Jump manga or whatever else they want to adapt and are well positioned to do it. But I think where I come in is those other opportunities.
Hmm.
So
And that includes very recently The Lord of the Rings. As a huge Tolkien fan, I can't tell you how exciting it was to see your name on the big screen.
nice. Well, I hope you liked it. Yeah, that was a dream come true for me because I'm a massive Lord of the Rings fan, and the opportunity to work with Peter Jackson and Kenji Kamiyama and make a movie. I never had that on my dance card when I started working on Toonami. It wasn't part of the plan. Uh, and it's probably for me the thing I'm most proud of, and probably the thing that was the hardest. And I'm really happy with how it came out. All the filmmakers are. We're all really happy with how it came out. And I honestly, it's great to be able to do something like that because now I feel like, well, I don't really have anything to prove to little Jason. Little Jason grew up on The Hobbit, which was animated by Topcraft and was basically like my movie, an anime hybrid. And then I grew up to do a Lord of the Rings anime, and I never thought I would ever come full circle like that. And for me, it just feels like, well, after that, I like that's the mountaintop, and everything else after that is just gravy. That's kind of where I'm at mentally. So,
Hashtag goals. Love to get there myself.
But then, of course, another big get for you had to be to actually work with Watanabe to create a new sci-fi original series.
100%, 100 million%. I had been talking to Watanabe about doing something together for almost a decade, going to different dinners, talking to him about projects, waiting for like the right time to come along where he was free and I had the opportunity. And by the way, I want to use this opportunity to just say no, he did not suggest to me to do Space Dandy season two. If he had suggested it, I would have said absolutely yes, let's do it. He did not. He did not. That was a mistranslation of what he said in that article.
Yeah, that article is not great.
I did not prevent Space Dandy 2 from happening. If ever he were to come to me and say, I want to do Space Dandy season 2, I would kill myself to try to make that happen. So he asked me, do you want a comedy or a drama? And I said a drama. So I'm guilty of that, but I'm not guilty of killing Space Dandy, and I refuse to take.
Yeah, yeah, you've been getting some critique
I
for
mean,
saying they should have just let Watanabe do what he
I
wanted.
mean, which is hilarious to say because it's like, yes, everyone seems to consider Space Dandy a classic now, but when we originally premiered it and spent money on it before anybody else, it flopped and it flopped really hard in Japan. In fact,
Heartbreaking.
Watanabe considers it a big failure because it didn't do well in Japan. Now, creatively, it's absolutely not a failure. It was wonderful. And obviously, I'm really happy to see it get its flowers years later. But it took like 10 years for people to understand that was a really good show. When it came out, the same kind of thing that I see some people saying about Lazarus, they said about Dandy, which is it's no bebop, you know. And I think to some degree, his work is always going to be plagued by that, expectation. But for real, nobody thought Space Dandy was any good until about 5 years ago. I did, clearly. But yeah, I didn't prevent Space Dandy from season two from being made. And if ever he changes his mind and we could make it happen, I would absolutely attempt to do that because I love that show.
I'm sure you are getting a lot of this from your perspective, but I've noticed heavily, and we've talked about this on the podcast, how heavy the nostalgia machine runs with people who are big anime fans, big Toonami fans, that they get sucked into, you know, oh, how it used to be or this old show. And the fact
Yep.
is, the time has made us a bit more reflective on a lot of these programs, and so I'm always looking at everything with fresh eyes, like new shows like Ninja Kamui and Lazarus, and seeing it like for all the great things that it's added, all the fun and edgy animation styles and music and the color and the life and the voice acting and the fresh talent. Like those are the things that will have lasting effect in Toonami history and anime history.
Yeah, I mean that's the hard thing about doing originals, really, is that, especially in anime, a vast majority of anime comes from pre-published material. And so fans already somewhat know the story, or they know what's coming, or someone online that they're talking to goes, "Oh, you think this arc is great? Wait till the next arc." And that's part of like being an anime fan. It's like that's people are hype about the manga, they're hype about this storyline, they're hype about this character, and it gives you something to look forward to. And then when you go online, everybody argues about how it was handled versus the manga. Was it faithful enough? Was it too faithful, et cetera, et cetera? The hard thing about a new show that's telling a story that no one knows is a lot of times people sometimes I think our society is harder on new stuff now because it's like you know the stuff that you love and the nostalgic stuff or the stuff that's based on something else. But when a story is brand new and you don't know where you're going with it, it can get frustrating, I think, for some of those same people. And I think that's the risk. And that's why a lot of people aren't making as much new stuff because it's really hard to build an audience now the way the internet has atomized everything and not, when there's no recognition of what it is in the first place, you know what I mean? So I'm really glad that Ninja Kamui was a hit and got a season 2 and 3 and got the Crunchyroll award. Like to me, that's a huge victory for us. And I'm really happy that Lazarus is a hit in Japan and doing really well on Max. And like, both of those shows are great success stories for the type of thing I'm trying to do, which is original stories that aren't based on manga when I can't get access to manga.
But sometimes you can get access to manga
Yeah,
because you have that Rooster Fighter show in
that's
development.
right. That's right. That one was one where believe it or not, Christy Caracas
Yes, I have heard
is
that.
told me you got to check this comic out, and I was like, "Wait, what?" He's like, "It's a manga. Go here, go look at it. You guys need to make this show." And as soon as I read the first issue, I was like, "Yes, we do." And I was amazed that it wasn't already snatched up by someone. But it's super funny and super. It's a hilarious like parody slash it's just kind of more of a seinen. It's like a parody of shonen tropes, but a self-aware fun parody and not like a mean satire type thing. I think people are gonna like it. I just know it's not really like anything I've seen, so
So focusing in on Lazarus,
yeah.
how did you approach the project overall? Did you just give Watanabe the note, we want something serious, and let him go from there?
We told him we wanted a drama and art and probably some sort of genre thing because we knew that it would be probably going on HBO Max and Toonami. At the time, actually, when it was greenlit, it was a Max original, and then the wave of like cancellations and things getting shuffled around kind of changed, and then Adult Swim swooped in to sort of help out. Um, but Max was looking for like sci-fi action at the time, so I told him a drama, sci-fi action would be great, but it doesn't have to be sci-fi action, but some sort of genre element would be great. And it was really more like, do you have anything in mind? And he had a couple ideas, one of which I think he still intends to try to do. And this was one of several. And we went down one path with one idea, but there were some rights that would need to be secured and it didn't work out. And then he came back and said, okay, I've got this original idea about this drug that everyone takes and it cures all disease and then they find out one day that that drug is going to kill them, that it's a poison pill. And I said, well, that sounds really cool. And he said it's set in the future. And I think I've got a really fun way to have some fun action sequences. And I kind of want to talk to Chad Stileski, who we had a relationship with. So it was actually a pretty long gestation period where Watanabe was exploring several different things and trying to figure out what he wanted to do. And then to some degree, he also was figuring out exactly what he wanted the story to be as he tried to get different writers and settled on the writers he did settle on. And then also as he built his animation team, because they actually influenced some aspects of the story when they would come in and draw something, he would, get more ideas. But he was essentially given total freedom as you would. I mean, why are you going to work with Watanabe and try to tell him what to do? So he was given pretty much total freedom as long as the episodes aired within 30 minutes and stuck to the budget. Like, you know, so like story wise, we didn't really give him many notes at all. Because I knew what he was doing. He explained it to me. I liked it, and I wasn't really in the mood to try to tell somebody like him how to structure his episodes. That's not the function of what I think my job is on that show.
I've noticed that there's a lot of reflection on healthcare in terms of the political aspect, and we've had a lot of discussions about that and how we can see parallels to today's situation. Was that intentional on his part, or was that part of the storyboarding from the team that they observed these incidents in the globe and wanted to incorporate that in the story?
Oh no, it's entire. I mean, it's very intentional on his part. He's very more than a lot of anime directors, Watanabe is very much an international thinker in terms of paying attention to what's going on in the world, in terms of
Hmm.
what he wants to show and what he's concerned with. So yeah, these are all things he's thinking about, and has been thinking about. I'd say he's pretty engaged about events across the world. I mean, obviously he's Japanese, so he first and foremost he's going to be concerned with his own country and his own audience. But broadly, I think he's just an international thinker, which is why a lot of his shows connect with audiences outside of Japan.
Yeah.
At the UN meeting, when the Americans were the first one to leave, when global warming was brought up, I just cracked up.
Yeah, I
Said, yeah,
mean,
that's accurate.
yeah, sadly it is. Sadly it is.
Unfortunately. Yeah. Relatable though, the
Now,
frustration.
I want to combine a couple of questions thrown at us from some of our collaborators, Lum
Sure.
Ramayasha and Steven, our social media guy.
Nice.
Watanabe reached out to a lot of collaborators to lend their talents to Lazarus, like Chad Stahelski and
Mhm.
Kamasi Washington. As the EP, what role did you have in connecting Watanabe with people he wanted to work with and making their involvement possible?
When it comes to the music, Watanabe said we traded music stuff, CDs at the time, believe it or not, during Blade Runner when we worked on Blade Runner together. We traded all kinds of like music stuff just because he has amazing taste and we were looking for what kinds of music to use and in the show. It ended up going a different way, but the music we were sending each other, he could quickly see that I'm a music nerd like he is. So when we started talking about this show, he was like, I want the music to be just wild. And I was like, great. Well, I have all these good relationships, so tell me who you want and I'll see if I can get them. And literally, the first three people on his list were Kamasi Washington, Floating Points, and Bonobo. And I said, well, that's easy. I know all of them, so I'll call them all. So it was as easy as me calling Kamasi and going, Watanabe wants to do something, and him freaking out because he's the biggest anime fan and grew up with Bebop and grew up with Toonami. And he was like, hell yeah, I'll do whatever he wants. I called Bonobo, same thing. We called Floating Point, same thing. They all knew who he was. They all knew Bebop and his other work, and they all were thrilled. So then it was just a matter of making deals with those labels and publishers, which I was pretty intimately involved in, making deals with our publisher who releases the soundtrack, or, who's going to release the soundtrack on vinyl and who already released it digitally, making sure all of those things go well, and then just managing the process of everyone's expectations, how music's going to roll in, how many rounds of comments Watanabe will have to give. What does that mean for a guy like Kamasi that isn't just recording electronically? He's got a full band and they have to rent studio time and pay people to record music. And it's not just something he can just quickly be like, oh, pop in and record another thing. Meanwhile, Bonobo is essentially one person with a laptop, and he does have a band, but he can kind of really respond quickly to notes. So then there was like, okay, this scene needs something very specific, so maybe we go to this artist. And so I sort of helped with that. I didn't help choose any of the songs. I didn't help choose the artists. I simply helped him get the artist that he wanted. As far as Chad, we had that pre-existing relationship from Ninja Kamui, where 8711 designed those action sequences, and Chad is actually also a huge anime fan. And Chad knew Watanabe already from Keanu, because Keanu and Watanabe had talked for years about trying to get a live action Bebop off the ground before Netflix's got off the ground. So they kind of already knew each other. So it was pretty easy to then go to Chad and say, hey, do you want to also, you're doing Ninja Kamui and it's coming along great. Do you guys want to work with Watanabe? And they were like, absolutely, we will do anything to work with him. So from there, it was really him and them talking about scenes, them building those sort of rough sequences, cutting them together and sending them to him and letting him comment about them. And then, but it was his idea to like use Chad. We just, again, my job as a producer is to help foresee problems and stop them when I can, and then also to help bring talent where I can help and or help the talent that's there achieve what they're trying to achieve.
What a
Bouncing
great
off of that.
soundtrack too.
Oh yeah. I love that all three of those soundtracks came out right away. That was fantastic. They are
Yeah.
awesome. I honestly wish some of the other Toonami originals worked out that way. It did on some.
We
It
need
did
a
on
label that
some.
wants to release the music for that to happen.
There's no full version of the new song that was done for Fooly Cooly Grunge, and it breaks my heart.
Yeah, that's completely up to the pillows, though, not us.
Right, of course. So jumping off what you said about your responsibilities as the EP, can you walk us through like a typical work week for you? Like what kinds of things are you dealing with?
Well, I mean, as of this moment, I'm a full-time Warner Brothers animation employee, right? So I don't technically work for Adult Swim. I
Right.
consult with Adult Swim only about Toonami, and even then, only really rubber stamping sort of, hey, programming thinks they have an opportunity to get Daima or whatever, and is that a good idea? And me going, sure, like or suggesting other things and them going, we can or can't get them or whatever, or sometimes helping with those things. But otherwise, I'm not really involved in the day-to-day of Toonami. I'm really a Warner Brothers animation employee, so my full-time job is development. So what I'm doing is looking for properties and artists and directors in Japan and also in the US, a lot, and France as well, and developing mostly based off of IP, but also original stuff that we can then sell to third parties, whether that would be Adult Swim, whether that would be Netflix or Hulu or whoever, anybody. So like Suicide Squad Isekai would be a good example of that. Um, didn't end up on Toonami for weird reasons, but it was something that I helped executive produce with Warner Japan because it was based on DC property, and then Hulu picked it up. So I think you'll see more of that kind of thing as I go forward. But yeah, what I'm doing is looking for books, movies, Warner Brothers IP, you name it, video games, and then original voices with original stories to try to develop and sell TV shows. And then if I sell the shows, I would then help produce the shows for whoever we sell it to.
And on the producing side of things, once you got a show cooking in the oven, like
Yeah.
what sorts of things are you doing on the week to week for that?
Well, for a TV show and not a movie, because what I discovered was a movie is a whole other beast. For a TV show, it's really like just very regular. Like you're setting up regular meetings about the scripts and script notes and who has notes and going over them and then running the script by S&P and legal and making sure there's nothing that's flagged in those places and then making sure that music deals are being done, deals with writers, deals with artists, making sure that those are all going smoothly, making sure payments are going well, and then when the cuts start rolling in, making sure you're doing your notes on the cuts, hearing what Watanabe thinks about the cut, sending it to the network and pre-selling the network on what they may or may not want to see, and so there's something there that might tweak them. So I have to sort of help pre-sell it, you know what I mean? Or if the network says, "Hey, this thing is in this episode, this is a problem for us," then going back to the artists, to creators, and sort of managing that all the way through for 2 years or 3 years until the show's delivering its final mixes. And then you start the dub process, helping choose the casting for the dub, helping choose the rewrites, looking at the language, blah blah blah, like all the way through. So the producer is really going to be a part of the project, honestly, longer than anyone other than the creator or the, showrunner like Watanabe, for example. Otherwise, I'm developing it before it becomes a thing, and then once it is a thing, I'm shepherding it all the way until it releases, and from there, my responsibility ends.
Hmm. I'm so glad you brought up the dubbing phase because it seems like Warner Brothers Discovery's go-to company is Sentai Studios.
Yeah. Yep.
That's interesting. Is
Well,
there a particular reason?
it's not, well, not really. I mean, there is, it's very hard to get into a lot of the former Funimation sort of train. It's
Hmm.
pretty always booked. Sentai has availability and they're willing to work with us. And they're also a studio beyond just being a distributor. They have a working VO studio they need to keep work coming in and out of. We also like Bang Zoom and we also like Nyav Post. And I've used Nyav Post like on all the Fooly Coolies, for example.
Hmm.
So I do like to mix it up and will likely continue to work with all three. It just so happened for Ninja and Lazarus, it was almost more of a scheduling thing. But I mean, that said, I get along well with the Sentai folks. We understand each other. They know what I'm looking for in terms of, price point. They know what I'm what I'm working with money wise, and they also know sort of what we don't want. If I could explain it that way. And then, there are guys like Naya Post, and I would say they're amazing collaborators, and I think they always do amazing work. And I love Bang Zoom too. Like those are really the three I work with the most often, is those three. But Sentai is really more just for it's just more happenstance that it's been the last couple than it is like a very targeted plan, if that makes sense.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Fair. Fair.
Yeah.
I've noticed that in the past few years, there's been a nice variance of animation styles and what we've shown for originals and new acquisitions. Is that intentional on your part, or is that just an incidental byproduct of bringing together new talent or various artists?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more of just like you said, it's more that it's just the way it works out because, anime is so individualistic in its,
Hmm.
presentation of because it's completely built around the artist's style. We don't particularly try to define what those styles might be. We do like mixing things up and having different visual approaches if we can, but not at the expense, ideally, of a story or a flow, or a production. Again, we know the work of the people we're working with 9 times out of 10 before we get to them. So we know what we're getting. We know what to expect most of the time, and most of the time we get what we thought we would get. And so that's sort of the value of being able to go to Japan and know the players and know the people. At this point, I've been going to Japan and working with anime studios and distributors and talent for like 20 years. So I know a lot of people and go out and socialize with them and know them well enough to sort of know, for the most part, I mean, you can always sort of get steered wrong, but for the most part, know what I'm getting with an artist and why I want to work with them personally, if that makes
So
sense.
a bit of both then.
A little bit of both, yeah.
I'm really curious about this. So one of the things that we all thought was very charming about Ninja Kamui is the character based on his appearance on you. Do you want to
Uh,
talk about that a little
I
bit?
think a lot of people did not think it was charming, but
Oh, we did.
But
that
the memes, Jason, the
I
memes.
Yeah, it's
mean, I'm
fantastic.
happy. I'm happy about the memes. The thing about that one was that was all Park. Like Park, he didn't tell me he was doing it until he did it. So he said, "Oh, hey, can you send me a headshot?" And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, we're just putting a lot of the artists, like we're putting everybody in the background in episodes." And I was like, "I don't really care about that, to be honest." He was like, "Come on, don't be an asshole." And I was like, "Okay, okay, I'll send it to you." So then, like, gosh, it was months later. I get like the first, not even the boards, because it looked different in the boards. It was the first animatic, the first like rough, and I was like, uh, that's
That's
me.
me.
And I was like, and his name is Jason? Because his name wasn't originally Jason. and Park just laughed and he was like, "Yeah, he's become like one of the main characters." And I was like, "God dang." But it was so far along that I basically it would have cost money to remove myself. So I said, "Okay, let's just make sure he's not like a real big character." And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And then he just did whatever he wanted. So I was very much not in control of that, although I think it's hilarious, and I like that they made him a big wimp. I love it. Uh, and a spaz. And then because I think Park was like enjoying messing with his producers because the bad guy, Joseph, is literally based on Joseph Cho, the co-producer.
Oh.
Makes him like he makes him the big cowardly villain asshole. You know, like it was clearly Park having fun with us. And so good on him. It's hilarious. But it was not like at no point did I ever search for or really want an anime character based around myself. Although, fun story, when I was in London for Lord of the Rings doing some I think it was the premiere weekend actually when we had a big premiere with all the Lord of the Rings cast. My wife and I went to a museum that day, like on our off time, and one of the security guards literally recognized me as my character from Ninja Kamui in London.
No
He was
way.
like, "Hey, you're from that anime." And I was like,
Oh my gosh.
and he said he pulled it up on his phone. He said, this is you." And I was like, "Yeah, that's me."
That's amazing.
So yeah, Ninja Kamui was really weird because when we released it in the US, it didn't roll out globally fast enough. So it was like it was one of the most pirated shows
Oh.
in China that year.
Huh.
And I think a lot of people, especially in Asia, but also in the UK and other places that don't get the new releases that pirate more, a lot of people watched it pirated, which sucks for us because we can't claim that or monetize it. But
Yeah.
I do think it helped the show when it came down to stuff like the Crunchyroll voting. But anyway, that was just a little fun story about and my wife also uses my character's face as her iPhone background. Yeah. Like one of
Not
the
Amazing.
ones of
unnerving
me
at
being
all.
like, "Oh," is like her phone background.
That's love right there.
This is very
I mean,
memeable.
it's a fun story. Yeah.
It is. I honestly would love. I'd be so flattered, personally.
I did wonder if Joseph had any relation to Joseph Cho. I was like, is that a coincidence?
Joseph Cho obviously is Korean and doesn't have blonde hair, but he does wear those kinds of glasses. And
Ah,
in other ways, the character is clearly modeled on Joseph. Yeah.
that's super fun. Hey, is Gil in there somewhere?
No, he's not. I mean,
Oh, sad.
Gil's met Park. Gil wasn't heavily involved in the production, but he certainly met Park, and we've gone to dinner with him a few times, and so he knew, Park knows Gil, who he is anyway, but he didn't want to put him in the show.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
Uh, People have noticed that in one of the Get Jiro promo arts, it looks like your severed head is among the severed heads.
No, I mean, maybe as a coincidence. I was not directly involved with Get Zero. I mean, my friends worked on it, and I did help a tiny bit, but not enough to say I was like really involved. So yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
but it's a
It's just
great
like,
show, and I think people are gonna love it. I really do. I
Oh,
think,
I'm really looking forward to it.
yeah, it's really cool. It's a really cool show. So
In recent years, Adult Swim's just come out with so many really interesting shows like the big one being Common Side Effects. Like what a
yeah,
phenomenal show.
yeah. I mean, that's all Joe Bennett, and Scavengers too. But a lot of that too is Michael O'Lean and his willingness to be adventurous with his choices and sort of try to keep that spirit of Adult Swim alive of doing experimental things. He knows we've got to do Rick and Morty and other shows that are successful that are going to take up most of the space because those are the biggest successes, but in between he wants to try to find those weird fun things that only Adult Swim could do, you know. So I hope he continues to be able to do that for a long time.
A big change being actually airing subtitle programming somewhat regularly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was all of our push. That was me and Michael and Kim Manning's push to just like accept the reality that people watch subtitles, and most of us watch all of our video with subtitles these days, whether it's on YouTube or
Oh,
wherever.
that's so true.
So
Can't
it's
hear a
like,
darn thing.
yeah, so it's like why are we worrying about it, you know? It is still a fact that sometimes you will see less people watch the sub than the dub, which but it's the difference is getting more and more marginal. So yeah, that was somewhat of an internal push on all of our parts of like, can we just like reflect reality, you know, and not do the old cable channel thing?
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Even a Spanish telenovela in Spanish with English subtitles, that is a bold choice.
It's pretty wild. But again,
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt anything these days, you know, or it doesn't have the impact that you might worry it would have even 5 years ago because it is so much a part of the way people consume media now, the subtitles, you know, on your Netflix shows, on your videos online, on your social media, you just subtitles always, you know. So
So you did mention that for Adult Swim, it's basically just consulting on Toonami, but the Toonami crew, that's pretty much Gil, his people, and Kim
yep.
in programming.
Yeah, the Toonami crew is literally all the same people that have been working on it since 2012, and many of them have been working on it since literally day one. Dennis Maloney's still there, Sarah Hardy's still there, Johnny Ray's still there, Brent Busby's still there. You know, those are all the people that are working on Toonami now with less resources than they used to, are still the same people who've been working on Toonami since the beginning. So, I'm not other than consulting, but they're, you know, that's been that way for like the last 4 years, 5 years. So not many people seem to feel a difference, I don't think. I think those guys are doing a good job.
I do just it's a burning question. How did programming get Bleach out of Hulu jail?
Oh, I don't, you know, it honestly, it's so weird the way things are working nowadays. You will be told something's no forever, and then 5 minutes later it's like, oh, we changed our mind. And it's like I don't know exactly the story behind that. I just know that they were asking about it before and it was a definite no, and then they asked about it again and it became a maybe like a year later, and then it became a yeah, I think we can work it out. Like you kind of just have to, the way the business works now, just be really persistent and bug whoever you're trying to get the thing from, because
Interesting.
it's the sands are shifting all the time now. I mean, there's just it's so chaotic, the industry, all industries, but definitely media and anime too. It's very chaotic, and you kind of have to just stay focused on the things you're trying to do and hope that when the opportunity comes, you'll be ready for it and you'll have the budget and you'll have the slot or whatever, you know. It
Hmm.
doesn't always work, and that's why, I mean, they're at any given time the programming team is going after like tons of shows at the same time and moving a little bit forward with them, you know, until they hit that wall, you know, or not. But again, that's more like question for Kim and her team.
Hmm.
I did want to ask follow up on something you had mentioned that Watanabe had a few ideas in the works. Are any of them potentially projects that we'll see in the future on Adult Swim or Toonami?
I think I mean, it's kind of too early to say. I don't
Okay,
really know.
fair enough.
I know that there's still things he wants to do. I know that we're really happy with Lazarus, and HBO Max is really happy. Like everyone's happy with Lazarus in terms of
Yeah,
viewership. Um,
Good.
so
good.
we aren't sure what that means for what's next It's a little early to say, but my hope
Okay.
is I would certainly love to work with Watanabe again. But even if I don't work with him again, these ideas he's got, they're going to go somewhere to somebody. So,
Yeah.
he's
I
not, he's far from done. He's got tons and tons of ideas.
In
yeah,
another
here's
universe,
hoping.
Carolyn Tuesday would have premiered on Adult
I
Swim.
mean, I know, I wish it had.
Oh,
I love Carolyn Tuesday. I think it's a unsung classic.
it's lovely.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to
Love those
point
shows.
out, and maybe this might potentially fall in your purview in the future, but as much as I'm enjoying this current program lineup, I would love to see a breakup of a sausage fest to get a little female protagonist in
I
there at
mean,
some
I
point.
I don't I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I
Sailor Moon's hanging out in the way back.
I know.
no, I definitely don't disagree. And again, it's a discussion that happens all the time about what can we get, how do we push things in a different place. I mean, obviously, there are so many different kinds of anime titles. There's literally anime for everyone. So
Yeah,
my goal is always, I don't, like I said, I'm not fully in control of it, but my goal is always to
sure.
have Toonami broaden its programming in terms of what types of shows we're showing. I think at its heart, it will always be and should be an action block. That's what it is. But I do think there should be, and I think you've seen it more over the years, a willingness to experiment with what goes in the block and what makes sense in the block. Uh,
Oh, definitely.
and I
Definitely.
and I hope that continues and does allow things to be less of a sausage fest, as you said.
Yeah. Yeah. It's okay that the listeners are used
As
to
a as
me
an owner of a
mentioning them.
sausage, I
Look, they don't make a
plenty
heat.
of them.
They don't make a Michiko and Hachin every day.
No, but
No, I mean,
they're loved. They're well received.
yeah, they are well received. And I mean, like I said, over the years we've reached out and tried to get a bunch of different female-led anime, and believe it or not, most of them we couldn't get because we couldn't get deals done because whoever had them, they were exclusive or they wouldn't give them to us or they wouldn't give them to us for a reasonable price. Because don't forget, all of this is business. So,
Yeah.
and I will say
Ain't show friends, it's show business.
I'll just leave you with this. It's harder than ever to license a show from a Japanese distributor because the way the system works now, and this is a good thing, not a bad thing. The way the system works now is rights holders have way more rights as to how their show is marketed, what you're allowed to do with it, what clips you're allowed to use, what your promos look like. That all is really fine when you're Crunchyroll because you don't have a TV network. So you don't need to chop up lots of little clips, and get approval for every single one. You're not doing a next episode, promo. For something like Toonami, that's a TV network that is still run in that old school TV network way where there are promos for the next episode when we can do them. There are multiple trailers leading up to a launch. It's done the American TV way, not the anime way where it's like, oh, we release the preview 3 months out, then we do the second preview, then we do the character thing, then we release the open, then we release the close. Like there's a way anime is marketed that totally works for the anime industry and works for Japan and something they're expected to be, and they are a part of all those decisions, those distributors. They don't like some network in the US just being able to chop up their clips however without them being able to see it. But that slows everything down and also creates more cost for someone like Toonami, where it's like, oh, they want you to change this, that, this, and that. It's like, well, that slows everything down. You have to build those approvals in, makes everything cost more. So it is challenging to make those deals. And then Toonami is not offering as much money as Netflix or whoever. So it's like, we're not going to give you that much money, and also we want more control over your clips. Sound good?
Yeah.
So it's
Thanks,
it's
guys.
so from that perspective, it makes it a little hard to make deals with Japanese, certain more protective. And like I said, that's good for them. They don't want the bad old days to return of Robotech where people could chop shit up and do whatever they want with it. They understand the value of what they're making and the value in the global marketplace of it remaining pure. And they also respect Toonami and they know what Toonami is almost to a person in Japan in the industry. They know Toonami and they respect Toonami for what it's done, but they also don't want to let weird stuff happen with their property that they're not a part of, and that is all down to respecting the creator and the way the anime industry generally runs, which I think again is all to the good. It just makes it really challenging for our programming team and our marketing team and our on-air team to get these shows that everybody's like, why don't they have Dan to Dan yet? And it's like there's a lot of reasons. It's not just because they're lazy and dumb. It's like but like I just say all that to say that doesn't slow them down from trying to get those shows. That doesn't stop them from getting good shows. It just means when you see those weird lulls, that's what happens when was suddenly five roadblocks hit at the same time that nobody was expecting. There's always a plan. I'm not even necessarily always clued into the plan until I ask. But there's always a plan, and they're always looking for a bunch of different things to try to make Toonami stay relevant. And hopefully they can keep doing as good of a job as they've been doing going forward. Because, I mean, not a bad run so far.
Yeah,
No.
thank you for sharing all that. That's actually something that a lot of listeners have had a lot of questions about. So I appreciate you giving that insight.
I know if there's one thing Toonami fans want more of, it's inside baseball. Because when I was on social media, that was 90% of my Toonami questions was, why didn't you get this? Why didn't this deal? Why is this airing like this? And like, honestly, 99.9% of the time, the answer boils down to some business weird shit like that, you know? So
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's. I think it's probably a unique element of this community is
it's a
how
good
much they want
element.
to be a part of it.
It's a good element. It's what makes Toonami unique is its fans, and what makes it unique is its presentation. And the fact that it's unique presents unique problems because we are
Mm.
now the only game in town and have been for like God knows how long since anyone ran anime on actual TV. And
Yeah,
we're still doing that every week. And that's
yeah,
not easy. So, uh,
absolutely.
How
You-
is your retirement from social media? Has it been good?
it's been wonderful. I think everyone should do it. It's been amazing for my mental health. It's been great. I think social media is I liked it when it first started. I thought it was a great way to connect fans, but just as much as it used to give, it's now taking from everyone. So I will just say this. I was shocked at how little I missed it and how much I'm still able to keep up with what's going on in the world. So
Oh, another
I
one
need to
of
learn
our
that lesson.
collaborators, Laser Kid, asked if there's any possibility of, since you mentioned behind behind baseball, is there any possibility of something like pre-flight ever again?
I would say no. I mean, like, there's always a possibility of like that like one of us would start a podcast or something like that, but frankly, I don't I'm busy and I enjoy making shows way more than I enjoy. I think people this is about me. This I'm going to say something about me that's not necessarily reflective of how Gil might think, but like I did not end up in the spotlight because I wanted the spotlight. I ended up in the spotlight because I thought it would help Toonami and Toonami fans for them to have somebody to ask questions of and be the face of the block. But the fact that I am not anymore really is just fine with me. And I'm not really looking to, like, I enjoy my work I really enjoy my work. And I do not care if anyone knows what my face looks like or what my name is. I just want to make fun work. So I don't know, maybe when I retire, or Gil retires, because Gil and I are best friends and we have been for 20 years and we will be for the rest of our lives. Maybe because we enjoyed pre-flight the rapport with each other. We enjoyed messing with each other and we had fun. So maybe one day, but in terms of an official capacity, Not that I know of, and I'd be surprised if there was. I just think that ship may have sailed.
Oh, that's too bad.
But hey, waiting for that tell-all book one day. First in
I've,
line.
I've heard that before. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know. But like I said, I like being in the shadows and working on stuff and, working with collaborators and people that I admire. It's a dream come true. And frankly, I've always say this, but I'll say it again. It was given to me by Toonami fans, which is why all of us at Toonami have the utmost respect and love for our fans, even the ones that hate us and bitch about us every week, because they're watching. And the fact that they're watching is what got all these opportunities. I literally did the greatest thing I've ever done in my life and made a Lord of the Rings movie, and it's because of Toonami, straight up. Toonami has given me more than anything else in my life that isn't my wife or child, and it's because of Toonami fans. So, sincerely, to everyone listening, whether or not you hate me or hate Gil or hate Toonami, we all love you, and we're really happy that you exist. And thank you to Toonami Faithful for continuing for so many years to talk about Toonami, dissect Toonami, try to hold our feet to the fire. We're stupid. Tell us you like a decision we made, because honestly, that kind of passion is why Toonami still exists.
Aw,
Yeah.
shucks.
I
Sometimes I
really
always
don't.
feel a little embarrassed if we do the holding the feet to the fire, and I'm like, I don't want anyone to be offended, but
I would not expect it. Look, if you make media and it's released in the world, you have to have thick skin. I mean, things someone says might make you mad. The only times I ever really get mad is when someone ascribes ill intent to a decision, like that we're doing something on purpose to be shitty, whether that's because of greed or laziness or whatever. That's the
yeah.
only kind of comment that makes me mad. Saying I don't like the shit you made, that doesn't make me mad. I don't care about that.
Yeah. We
Um,
we all I think that Sketch and I can agree that we always try to be very respectful of the creators and the producers and everybody who gets paid to work on all of this. We just state our opinions about production or animation or whatever decisions, but we always try to, not do so in a disrespectful manner. And I
I
always
mean,
encourage listeners to be the same way. These are people we're talking about.
yeah, I mean, it's fine to not like something. It's fine to be
Hmm.
annoyed. It's fine to hate it.
Yeah.
But just remember that the people making it aren't really much different from you.
Yeah.
And no, they don't think they're better than you and they don't think they're smarter than you. They're just assholes who are doing their best, just like everyone else.
Just like
That's
us.
literally, look, if I could give you one less, I've met a lot at this point, I've met a lot of brilliant creators, musicians, directors, artists, famous people, and I'm telling you, at the bottom, they're all just people with their own weird shit. And I think people forget that. They put creators on a pedestal, and then when they're not on a pedestal, they're like in hell burning. It's like, and it's like
Yeah.
neither one really, neither that those creators don't really want either of those. They just want to be people and make shit. It's
Hmm.
just, but I get it. Not everybody has the opportunity to make shit, and some people are frustrated that you didn't do things the way they would have done it. And again, that's only human. But like I said, you can't be in this business, and if you take that stuff too personally in this business, you're gonna lose your mind. Like
Sure.
you just can't. So
Yeah.
Hmm.
if you don't have thick skin, you shouldn't work in TV or movies. So,
I have one last question before you go.
okay, sure.
To the extent that you're comfortable saying, and again, that's I will say whatever you feel like you're able to. Is there anything you want to share about Uzumaki and how that came
Ooh.
out, and anything you are comfortable sharing?
The network would
I
kill
had
me.
to ask.
I'm
Come
not.
on, Sketch. We had to ask. Come on.
I'm not really
I'm
allowed
glad
to
you
say.
asked and I didn't.
I'm not. I would love to talk about it, but I
Sure.
can't really talk about it for all
Okay.
kinds of reasons.
I completely understand. I
I don't blame
completely
you for
understand.
asking, and I wish I
Yeah.
could talk about it because boy, there are some stories. But
That's your tell-all book, right? That we'll be
yeah,
buying
maybe that. Yes,
in 30 years or
Now there
whatever.
are some folks out there that think you should have just quit while you were ahead with the one episode, but for all its warts, it's still a very compelling horror story that is some episodes, but
sure.
overall it's a good show. It's a good solid show.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for saying so. And if I could talk about it, I would. But
Yeah, and we get it. But you've said it now and people have heard it. So now people can
yeah.
stop harassing them. Let it go and move on with your lives. Thank
And
you though.
I
I
hope
appreciate
and
it.
but thank you for talking to me, and I hope that everybody enjoys the final episode of Lazarus and feels the journey was worth it. I know all the crew and Watanabe are really happy with the reception of the show and the success of the show, and it means a lot to all of us, and hopefully will lead to more from all of us. We'll see what happens.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cool.
This has been really great, and yeah, I think Lazarus has been really exciting journey. So thank you for taking the time, and thank you for
Cool.
bringing us there.
One more fun question: Who's your favorite character in Lazarus?
I mean, I know that, to be frank, it's Skinner.
Me
You
too.
know what?
Oh my gosh.
I like Skinner.
Valid.
I
I'm
mean,
a total Skinner apologist.
I think Watanabe is really good at coming up with characters that you want to root for. He's also really good at coming up with characters where you may not know a lot about them and you still feel you know them. So I actually really like Axel. I know some people have issues with the fact that he's not like a deeper character that they know of. But
Mm.
I just like Axel. I know he's like Watanabe's idea of what a cool guy is, and that makes me like him. But like but Skinner is my favorite character and easily the most compelling character, I think, and as it should be. And I think Skinner is why people are gonna watch the show after the premieres. Like, if it has a life beyond the premieres, it'll be because of that central problem with Skinner and why did he do it,